listening to Reclaiming My Mind. I'm your host, Jessica Vaughn, and I do want to take a moment just to stop and do a little disclaimer. Although I am elected to the Hillsborough County School Board, this is completely separate. This does not represent my service as a school board member or as a school board member as a whole. This is just me as an individual interviewing people in my community and things I feel passionate about. So today we have another part of our series where we're getting to know our candidates, right? Which is really important, getting to know our elected candidates. And we are going to have on one of our guests, Alan Henderson, who's running for Tampa City Mayor. And before I introduce him and get to him, I also just wanted to remind all of our voters that, especially in Hillsborough County or Tampa, if you were enrolled for vote by mail, you have to re-enroll since the last election. So it used to be you signed up for vote by mail, and no matter what, you were signed up and you get your ballot. But legislation has changed that. And now after every single election, you have to re-enroll to vote by mail. And there's special elections happening all the time that you won't even know about unless something comes in the mail for you to vote. And even if you don't want to vote by mail, you can bring your ballot in to an early voting site or in person and exchange that and vote in person. But at least it keeps you up to date of what elections are happening and who's running. So make sure you sign up to vote by mail. So that's my little plug. And now we'll transition to our host, Alan. It's so nice to have you here. Thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you for having me. This is a pleasure.
I know you came straight from church, so I appreciate that. So let's kind of dive into it. First, tell me a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get to the race that you're running. I don't know much about you, so, tell me all about Alan.
Sure. And really, truly, thank you for having me. My name is Alan Henderson. I was born in Tampa, raised here. And I kind of describe my story as someone who's been fortunate enough to see both sides of Tampa really closely. As a kid, I was sort of born into opportunity in a way. I started pretty young as an actor in Disney. And so it got me to fall in love with storytelling and marketing and taking work product seriously. And it also got me really involved in business, probably around when I was maybe 12 years old. I started a photography company and I was taking pictures for my brother's football team. And so my parents have always instilled discipline and caring about work at a young age. I remember there was times where I would want to maybe throw a blurry shot or something into the mix because you're staying up so long working on it. And my mom would tell me these parents are paying you for this product. Your name is on it. You need to care about it. And so that type of mentality has just been something that I grew up with for a really long time. I got my first job at Burns Steakhouse. You got to say the legendary Burns Steakhouse, right? And same, principles apply there. Their standards are very high, almost absurdly high, to be honest. But there's always this idea that you have to care more about the work than you do what people think of it. And that's basically what's been driving my momentum in this campaign. I after high school, started, or kind of really in high school, to be honest, I started an esports company. And that's really what kind of gave me the business acumen I have today. It taught me a lot about leadership, a lot about high stakes, momentum. And esports, in a way, is kind of very similar to politics in that you have your team that you're rooting for, that, there's a branding element, but then there's also a business side. I'm a really terrible gamer, to be honest, but halfway through, you're weighing the players' interests and negotiating contracts, and the brands have activations that they want, and you have the relationship with the league's managers and travel. And I just realized that in so many ways, what I actually was in love with was building things that are competent, that are cool, that are connected with the community. And Tampa has basically been a platform for that since I was a little kid. And so I've seen the growth. I've seen a lot of the problems that everybody names out loud. And I've just always felt like if you can lead and if you feel like you can make a difference, you should step up and you should contribute those ideas. And so that's what's kind of carried us here today. I studied a little bit of public policy at Harvard, in ethical leadership. um, and really just trying to get the underlying sort of fundamentals of uh, running a city under our belt. And it's been fun, and I have been so thankful for the relationships and the people that have helped contribute to where we are today. And I'm hoping that that momentum carries itself all the way into March. So,
All right. Well, let's back up a little bit.
yeah,
So you were born in Tampa. Where were you born?
I was born in Davis Island, Tampa
Oh,
General Hospital.
okay. So Davis Island. And I know, just coming in, you talked and mentioned you'd gone to the same middle school as my son.
Yeah.
So which elementary school did you go to?
So I went to a few elementary schools. My parents were in business, so they had a few properties. They still have a few properties. So for a little bit, I went to Nelson Elementary School. I went to Lincoln Elementary School, and that's ultimately where I graduated from. Then I went to, which is also a magnet school, Lincoln. I did Williams for a couple of years before switching to Turkey Creek Middle School. And then in high school, I started at Durant for about a year or so, and then ultimately graduated at Brandon.
Okay. So even though your heart's with the city, you've been invested all over Hillsborough, it sounds like.
All over the place.
And then for college, you mentioned Harvard, or what did college look like for you?
College has always been something that you go through the motions, right? You do well in school, and so college was a natural next step. I started at HCC with my undergrad, but then around halfway through, I got an opportunity to transfer to Golden Gate University and move my credits over there.
Is that in San Francisco, I'm imagining?
It is, yeah, it is.
Okay.
And great professors, great institution. But I realized that I felt like I was doing a lot of wheel spinning. By this time, I was maybe, um, let me see, I'm 25 now, so maybe I was around like 21 or so. And by that time, I had a lot of experience like leading pretty sharp people, pretty competent teams. And all the people that I was working with, some of these guys had master's degrees and they reported to me. And so I was really kind of already at that point concerned about ROI and just spending so much money
What's
on
ROI?
on making sure I actually got my money's worth.
Return on investment? Is that the word? Yes,
Right.
that's
Yeah,
what it stands
precisely.
for.
Making sure I got my return on investment for what we're spending on education. And it was around early 2022 when my mom got sick.
Oh.
And so I kind of immediately had to step up kind of as a caregiver, take over, like I said, they have multiple properties. They had a lot of moving pieces. And so that was kind of a surprise for everybody. And I decided that if I had the discipline I know to, if I wanted to continue, finishing a degree, I could. But what I really wanted to do was just learn and have the credentials and the expertise, or at least the working knowledge to take it further. And so I switched from, instead of wanting to finish a full MBA program, to wanting to pursue credentials. And so I signed up for Harvard's executive education course. They have a few, but I did the ethical leadership and justice course. And I also signed up for, this is later, actually last year, an internship at McKinsey and for business analysis. And that's kind of been the new trend for me. And I think maybe a lot of young people is sort of practical application over structured, rigid environments. And so I found that to be pretty beneficial.
So you mentioned your mom got sick. Is she okay?
No, unfortunately, my mom passed
Oh.
in late 2022.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. But that was a real, talk about sort of growing through, pain and challenge. It was just a real opportunity for me to get closer with God, get a closer connection with my family, realize that, work is important. All the goals and stuff that you have for yourself is important, but really you only get one family, and that always has to be priority. So,
Well, I'm sorry that your mom passed, and it sounds like you fit a lot in the 25 years. You've mentioned you're 25 years old, but it sounds like, already in just 25 years, you've thought a lot. You've had a lot of experiences. So, I mean, I hear what you're saying. It sounds like you're a very thoughtful young man. You're very ambitious. It sounds like you're very interested in the way that things work. But why now have you decided at this point that you want to run for Tampa City Mayor?
That's a good question. I would say I feel like our city is at a unique sort of nexus where growth is already here. It's been coming for forever. And, there's a lot of a lot of initial energy to want to push back against it.
Push back against the growth specifically by the constituents of Tampa?
Precisely. Push back against the growth. And I think that probably a better use of our combined potential is to try to make sure that growth is shaped in a way where it actually benefits the residents. And when you look at the platform of say Bob Buckhorn, I don't mean to turn this into I'm talking trash or whatever, but his platform is literally the exact same agenda. It's exactly the same carbon copy, and it's like
of his previous agenda
terms,
while he was mayor. You mean?
Quite frankly, of the last maybe 2 decades. I mean, centralize growth in downtown and hope that the benefits trickle out to everybody else. But it hasn't worked. I mean, downtown has grown. Don't get me wrong, but not everybody is seeing the benefits of that growth in a way that really matters. And he's back on the ballot.
Is he? Hasn't filed yet?
Not
correct?
yet, not currently, but he very is open about running again.
He's certainly raising
lots of money, and he talks about it on the news. He says he's going to get back in, and I just feel like it would be insane. It would be actually insane for us to vote in quite literally the same politicians and expect any type of different outcome than what we've already seen from his previous leadership. And so I approached the role with a sense of urgency around trying to, work on the shared priorities of the city. I've had so many conversations now with residents since running that have only served to reinforce what I felt like I already believed, which is that, people aren't necessarily benefiting from this growth. The traffic gets worse. The infrastructure is strained. The city is kind of turning into like mini Miami, and I care so much about us not growing in that way and protecting what we have that it felt like, if not now, when? Why would I wait another decade to sort of watch them manage what I feel like is this decline when we could be engaged currently? So decided to get to work.
So I'm going to ask a question then that I'm thinking, I'm imagining a lot of other people are thinking. Why would you jump straight to mayor instead of like city council? That's a big jump, especially if you've not really been involved with politics before. Instead of kind of looking at and what district do you live in now?
District 5.
District 5.
Yeah.
Okay. So is that like East Tampa?
A little
pretty
bit.
much.
Yeah,
East Tampa.
Maybe like 8 minutes.
So that's not where Nia Young just won.
No, well, she did win District 5, but that's not where I decided to run, no.
No, but that's what I'm saying. It's her district where Nia Young, that's where you live.
Yeah.
So you could have jumped in that race, which was very oversaturated and quite the race to watch. What made you want to go straight for mayor?
Well, for one, it was about the impact I wanted to have. City council is cool. It's technical. I like Robert's rules. I like the whole dynamic of it. But they're very limited in terms of what they have the ability to do. Their job is to legislate. And I've always felt like my role, if I become the mayor, is to be a little bit more of the generalist as opposed to the specialist. And what I have more experience doing than anything is bringing smart people in a room together, asking tough questions, taking ideas off of paper, motivating teams, building momentum, trying to access clarity. And these are the things that, when you look at the job description of the mayor, it made more sense to me. And when I thought about the type of impact I wanted to have in the community, the mayor's role is definitely the one to do it.
So you feel more like a leader?
Absolutely.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the city of Tampa. I wanted to make sure I had my information correct, so I pulled some of the statistics around the city. As far as I can tell, Tampa's never had a black mayor before, an African American mayor. So you would be the first if running. I couldn't find, but it doesn't seem we've had any mayors under the age of 30. So you're kind of, looking to break a lot of barriers of what has been, which I love. I love seeing younger candidates, diverse candidates, because another piece of what I was looking at is the makeup of the city, right? And so it has 200,000 voters, 78,500 of them are Democrats.
Mm-hmm.
63,500 are Republicans. 52,000 are NPAs, which we see more and more NPAs across the board, whether it's local, municipal, state, or even national levels. Nonpartisans are becoming big. But a third of those voters are African American, or Black, and have never had representation, right? If we've never had a Black mayor, there's a third of our city who's never had, someone who represents their ethnicity
Right.
ever be in leadership. So do you feel like extra responsibility? Do you feel like there's extra barriers as a candidate, both running as, what are you Gen Z? What
I
generation
think
are
so. I
you?
think Gen Z is what they say.
A Gen Z, African American candidate. Do you feel like this has been a more challenging election, a more challenging race, or what do you feel like kind of running as a breakaway standout candidate?
That's a good question. I do appreciate it. Um, I would say I definitely feel the pressure in regards to my race, but not because there's
Race as in
my
ethnicity
my
race, or
ethnicity.
do you
Right, right.
mean your
The
election?
actual race.
Okay.
That's that's a good distinction. No, in regards to my skin color, and not necessarily because of the barriers. If I was, you know, perhaps convicted in going the traditional route, and like trying to, work my way up through the whole government and, lobby people and groups and stuff, then maybe I would feel that pressure. But I've always not been that interested in kind of asking for permission to get involved. I do feel the pressure when it comes to really wanting to deliver. The way I think about it is like, okay, God willing, you become the first Black mayor. You gotta work really hard to make sure you're not the last Black mayor, right? And what it means for people who perhaps would look to me as a role model, for younger leaders across the country who are stepping forward. Um, I know it comes with a lot of trust. It's a high stakes position and high responsibility, and so I carry that with me into the rooms. But I also try to make sure that it's not an inhibiting factor for me as well. Like I try to think through it, um, so I don't feel like it's not an option, right? Like I try to see myself in the position and talk with leaders who have also overcome adversity in their own regard. And I look up to civic rights leaders. We just lost Jesse Jackson.
Yeah.
Um, Try to look up to them as well and follow their example, because it's a big deal. And if you do it correctly, it could have a huge impact.
Well, it's like, how long do we have to wait until we kind of catch up with, the times we've had our first Black president? It's time, that we have more representation. One of the things that bothers me as an elected official is a lot of our governing bodies has like one Black seat. There's
Right.
just not enough representation. But it is a barrier, unfortunately, that I think we have to talk about. And we've had candidates who have come on before, candidates of color who said, they've been, canvassing and had really bad experiences, that people have been more suspicious of them when they're out in their communities. And, I always like to kind of talk about all the challenges. We had Stephanie on earlier. We talked about the challenges of being a woman and the challenges of being a mother and all of what that looks like. And I think, people need to understand it's a lot to run for office. It's a lot to put yourself on the line, to make yourself vulnerable, to expose yourself. But there are also a lot of challenges no matter who you are. But anyway, so let's get back to the demographics and what that looks like, as well as what you had mentioned. One of the things I think I've noticed in paying attention to the city politics is there is that constant push and pull between city council and the mayor. relate the mayor position. Sometimes it's combative, sometimes it seems like it's more combative than collaborative, and that causes an issue when it comes to moving things along or getting things done. When you are elected mayor, right? That's the terminology we're all supposed to use
Let's
as
do it.
candidates,
Absolutely.
is when, not if. Although it feels a little bit presumptuous to always say that as a candidate. But when you're elected mayor, how are you? I mean, I hear you. It sounds like you're thoughtful and, you want to work with people and being collaborative and objective focused. But how are you going to navigate a highly charged political environment to work with city council to make sure that we're moving forward instead of kind of just getting stuck in where we don't agree?
That is a fantastic question, and it's one I thought about, especially looking at like what have been the previous discrepancies. Um, and I feel like a lot of it falls into sort of competing interests, right? And so I've tried to make sure that my campaign and my platform is rooted in one singular interest, which is how do we make Tampa better? And so the way I kind of see it is I have some non negotiables. For example, anything that prices out residents or disrupts the quality of life that we all care about. Um, we can't do deals in the dark. I don't want to contribute to gentrification and displacement and these sort of things. I have some non negotiables that just come with me being elected, but anything that is actually beneficial and if you feel like helps move the city forward, I'm more than willing to listen to. Um, and I want the working relationship when I'm in charge to be collaborative with city council. Um, I we have this in our blueprint. One of the first directives is to start weekly sort of stand up sessions between the executive branch and city council. Um, to make sure that they have representation in our office, their ideas are being heard, but at the same time, we're aligning our agenda with, what the projects they've been working on and the budgets and making sure we're all on the same page. And so I do think you have to be intentional about bridging that divide. It is something that takes effort. Um, but the way I see it is if I have a goal of, fixing the streets, for example, city council likely should also share that goal. And if I have a goal of, making the city more affordable, there's a good chance that's what also got them elected. And so I just believe having the same set of goals and not making it about character or tone or, anything that's sort of beneath the office is pretty useful in that.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the issues, right? And then get into your platform, which remind everybody how to get to your website.
It's hendersonfortampa.org.
Can you spell that for me, Henderson?
Absolutely. HendersonFortampa.org.
Okay, so it's pretty meaty, which on one level I completely appreciate, right? Because you have so many people who run for office and they throw out these like campaign slogans and there's no meat and plan to, you're like, how are you going to accomplish that?
Right.
And boy, do you tell people how you're going to accomplish it, right? There is a lot of information on there. You have a blueprint. One thing I did notice about it is that you're very aggressive in the timeline, right? You're very focused, like in the first 120 days, like you want to, when you get elected, make an impact and start doing things right away, which I appreciate. Let's try to chunk it down a little bit for people who can't kind of navigate through a 40-page blueprint, which again, I appreciate. If I was just to say, in a couple words, what are the 5 pillars of your platform? What would that look like?
That's a great question. Affordability, first and foremost.
Okay. Affordability.
Safety, keeping the residents safe. Making our city more transparent and accountable to the public. Improving transportation. And then the last one I describe as having a resident-obsessed government.
Oh, yes. I highlighted that one. I did. That terminology was very bold. I liked it.
I'm very serious about it.
Resident-obsessed. I don't think I'd heard that before. I'm kind of enjoying all of these new candidate campaigns because there are new terms coming out I hadn't heard before. Okay, so affordability, again, without getting too deep into that, what does that look like? Because that could mean so much to so many different people. So what does affordability mean to you for the city of Tampa?
Well, it sort of basically means looking at the landscape we inherit. A significant portion of the city is renting. Developers can come in and build what they call affordable housing, but it's priced much higher than the median income of the city, and it's just inaccessible. And so for me, it's about trying to bridge the accessibility gap by ultimately doing two things. One, inviting opportunities for higher income. And so we have this idea called Task Tampa, which is sort of workforce development, which can help provide immediate payment to families who need it. Um, but then also hold the developers accountable for, you know, taking up housing during a housing crisis, or without getting too technical, they'll overrun on their budgets and they can't actually complete the affordability targets that they agree to. And so it's just about having a much higher focus on um, making sure that the programs and the work we do to build uh, affordability into our city actually reaches the people it's meant to help in the first place.
Okay, I like that. So tell me what safety looks like for you.
Safety is revolutionary. I have it's sort of a no compromise thing for me. You have to keep the city safe. So I want to hire a lot more police officers, and I see myself as someone who is happy to be in the schools and help excite the kids about like working for TPD and um, getting them, you know, excited about civic involvement and getting in law enforcement. But the other side of it is also having a very high standard for TPD as well. Um, I think they already operate at a very high standard. But it's clear when you look at the city's history, the sort of revolving door police chiefs and, the biking while black, which happened under Buckhorn. If you're not intentional about curating that standard, it'll slip. And sometimes the cost of that is too high. And so there's a good chance the next mayor almost certainly will have an opportunity to appoint the next police chief. um, what I want to do is make the appointment process public. I'll have a slate of people. I'll do an audit within the first 100 days of what the officers think, and that'll give me some candidates I can put forward. And then everybody that I would consider has to understand the value of community policing. They have to understand what it
Yeah,
means to build trust.
community policing is safe for everybody.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, it doesn't have to be, you know, authoritarian, right? I mean, I see it as TPD should be willing to show up when things go wrong. And I want to have, I call it brag worthy response times. Like I want them to be on it. But also they should be willing to show up to ask how things can be better and how to really, bridge that trust gap. So that's sort of my safety platform in a nutshell. But that's just about being really focused about the effort that they bring to the city.
So I appreciate that because that's a challenging area to walk. And if we had more time, I would follow up with, do you think we don't have enough police officers? But there's so much of your platform I want to talk about. To me, when I think about safety, I also think quality of drinking water, storm resiliency,
Absolutely.
heat resiliency, talking about that. So is that built into your platform of safety as well?
Absolutely. It definitely is.
Okay. And then resident obsessed. I mean, it sounds kind of self-explanatory, but explain to me in your own words what obsessed means.
Absolutely. This term kind of came from this idea of when mom got sick. I had to navigate a lot of complex systems kind of by myself. And it was a lot of Googling, a lot of phone calls. You're talking to like disability attorneys and doctors have their notes and you're coordinating things. And there was just a time where I really just felt what it felt like to feel powerless against these like major systems. And I never wanted to ever feel that way again. And then I realized after talking with so many residents that uh, that type of feeling presents itself in government every single day. And the dynamic that I want to flip is right now you can go to public comment if you can fit it in between work, and the city might do a flyer or an Instagram survey or something, but there's really not a way to engage your government seriously. And when the opportunities to engage are present, a lot of times it's ignored, or it's not taken as seriously as it should be. And so I want to flip that on its head. We have what we call the Mayor's Mobile Office Initiative, and this is getting out of City Hall, getting from behind the desk periodically, and bringing all the department heads that actually have the authority to make decisions, bringing them to the meetings with me in the community hall forums and um, opening tickets. If people have problems, these are the people who can fix it. So, let's get to work. Um, and just being much more forward about what I taking care of the priorities of who I believe are the chief stakeholders in Tampa, which are the people.
I like that getting out from behind the desk. Like as a school board member, one of the things I'm always advocating for are the people at the district who make decisions, really getting into the schools and seeing firsthand. Because I was talking to the guests previously and they said, do you have to go to schools as a school board member? And you don't, but I can't really understand the impact of my decisions if I'm not at the level where they're being implemented and people are responding to the decisions that I make. So I
That's
do
right.
think it's so important that everybody who's involved in making the decisions are out in the community seeing firsthand what that looks like because it's so easy to get disconnected, just by removing yourself from being on the front line. So I appreciate that. Let's talk about these elections because I think a lot of people are, if you look at city elections, they have so little engagement, right? And I think part of that is because it's off cycle.
Right.
We're used to, most voters are used to, okay, you have midterm elections that happen in an off presidential year and you have presidential elections, but these are off on their own entire cycle. So
Sure.
I think that's really confusing for people and they don't engage in it. And, like I said, when we were talking about District 5, if you look at the turnout in city elections, it's such a
Yeah.
small group of people making the decisions of what affects so many people's lives who show up at the actual election day. So your election for mayor would be held on March 2nd, 2027, which is almost exactly 1 year, but I think, a few weeks a year from. So you filed very early. And who else has filed? So we're talking about Bob Buckhorn. Usually mayoral race gets pretty heavy. We've seen Harry Cohen had run previously. There's talk of different city council members jumping into that race. Right now, are you the only candidate who's actually filed?
No, there are a handful of filed candidates, but and I say this with all due respect to the other candidates, I'm the only one that I feel like is putting forward solutions.
Mhm.
I think everybody does a great job at identifying the problems,
Mhm.
uh, but sort of the nexus that I think is uh, to me worth explaining if you're going to get in the race is okay. If you currently have a position in government now, or you held a position in the last 20 years, every problem that we are all on the same page about identifying, you could probably take back to your office right now and start fixing. And so, um, I do welcome diverse input. Anybody that has the goal of making Tampa better, I'm honored to be on the same stage with. Uh, but at the same time, it's a serious gig, and I think that the next mayor is not going to be just a ribbon cutter anymore. Right? It's not going to be photo ops and shaking hands and kissing babies. Uh, this is like it's going to be serious. We face a pretty intense budget deficit.
We
Um,
are,
the
especially if taxes get cut.
Yeah, yeah, so, to say the least, to say the least. And the equity gaps are growing, and Tampa is also growing at a very fast pace. And it's just not the role that you want to get in if you don't have a serious plan.
Okay. Well, I have two more questions I want to kind of speak about. So, one, we've talked about you being a younger candidate, right? And the challenges that come with that. Again, when I was looking at the makeup of voters, the highest population of voters citywide, countywide are 66 and older, right? And I don't know if that speaks to one, we have less young people. There's a lot of conversation about the population going down and people having less children and less families, or if younger people just aren't registering to vote, or what that looks like. It's hard to figure out why a lot of our voters and a lot of elections are older. um I think part of it, right, is, now I've been involved in local politics. I've only been elected 5 years, but before that I was very engaged. Started the local progressive caucus. I worked in a lot of different campaigns. We see a lot of young people get excited, they run for a position, A lot of times they don't win, unfortunately, and then we don't see them again, right? Whereas kind of, older people stay involved, they stay engaged. And I know a lot of this has to do with like the luxury of where you are in life. When you're younger, you're trying to build your career, you're having family, you're having children. It's hard to put that part of your life on hold and stay engaged. But I guess my question is, and I know one of what I think my answers are, but how do we keep young people like yourself who want to run for office, who have great vision, who are very thoughtful, who care about their community? If for some reason this isn't the time for them or they don't win their election, how do we keep them engaged instead of just kind of, disengaging after that?
For sure. And that is a fantastic question. Um, I, Candy Low?
I do.
I had this. She gave me this really sweet message maybe like 2 days ago, which I thought was you know really germane to your question. She said it was her event, Tea and Conversation. That was one of the first events I ever went to, and right when I announced, the news did the coverage or whatever, and people come from the woodworks to have all types of opinions about me, my platform, my age, about everything. And she was someone who, in the beginning, was very adamant about not putting out any type of fire, right? Not raining on my parade because she's like, her sentiment was basically, and I'm paraphrasing, but she says, who am I to say you don't have a voice in politics or that you can't contribute? And I think that's sort of the answer to the question, is to remember that young people are a part of the future, certainly, but they're also a big part of the present, and they have ideas and they have lived experiences. And quite frankly, I feel like young people have seen so much of the world. I mean, they're just online so constantly, and they're bombarded by all types of different, things that they internalize and they could contribute if given the space. And so I think that if you want to keep young people engaged, we have to engage them, right, and give their ideas proper space. Don't, make it easy just because they're younger. But
Why
also,
not? Can't we make it easy because they're younger?
you can give them room to grow, right?
Or us. You should be saying us. You're young people,
Well,
right?
I think we're all kind of young, right? But you can give them an opportunity to grow. Don't assume that they're going to have all the answers that somebody at 70 has, at 25. But also, I think it's fair to say that they do have ideas worth listening to. And if we give them an opportunity for representation, uh, we can be excited about them taking it.
So just to add a little bit more, Candy Lowe, as you mentioned, she's been hosting, I don't even know how many years, Tea and Conversation, where people in the community can come out and ask hard questions to our candidates. She also helps with the Black Business Bus Tour, which goes around Tampa, exposing residents to Black-owned businesses, which is really fun. I've been on it a few times. In fact, I wore a necklace I got on it yesterday to the Black History Brain Bowl, got all sorts of compliments. So just to speak to who Candy Lowe is. So what I hear you say, and I just want to, see if I can, if what I'm hearing is correct. In order to keep young people engaged, we have to make space for them.
Absolutely.
and value what they want to contribute to the political environment.
Definitely.
Okay. And then, so I guess one of the last questions I have is, and it coincides with our last guest, what I feel like a lot of the candidates I see now, their messaging is, moving away from developers controlling everything, moving away from kind of the corruption we see with people who have money and their object is to make more money, influencing our local politics, our state politics, but the challenge is money is a good guideline of what people use to, one, measure your viability, right? I mean, people aren't necessarily, when they're looking if you're a viable candidate, about how many likes you're getting on social media or how many volunteers. They're always looking at how much money you've raised. And let's be honest, I'm always a candidate who's, pushing back against the amount of money. You do need money to get your messaging out and to compete, right? I mean, you have to reach voters, and it's increasingly more difficult to reach voters. So my question is, how do you run as a candidate who's anti-development, anti-corruption, who wants to be the candidate for the voice of the people, running against, again, we're talking about Bob Buckhorn, who's not even in the race yet. And there's already articles being written about the war chest of money that he's raising, specifically from developers, right? Which
Right.
he's unabashedly, unapologetic about. It's something he's embracing. So how do you run a viable campaign and go up that kind of power and money? Because it's not just money, right? Developers, they have PACs, they have voting groups, they have, candidates that they endorse and they send messaging out. How do you run a successful campaign against that type of money and power, the kind that people want? And how do you get your messaging out?
That is a fantastic and fair question. Um, for me, it's been about trying to make sure we're focused on the right priorities. I had this experience when I first got in the race, and I went to some kind of like political caucus event, and a politician. I'm just laughing because I'm so disillusioned with politicians now. But he comes up to me. Oh, we had a great conversation, Mr. Henderson. It's great to meet you. Good luck. Keep doing your thing, and I'm rooting for you. And I went home feeling like pretty cool. Like I was pretty happy. And then it was maybe like an hour after I got back, I got a text, and it was like, "Hey, by the way, do you think you could contribute $100 to my campaign?" Uh, and I just felt like the whole interaction was transactional, and I didn't want people to feel like that when they were, talking with me. Um, and so I decided to make the whole. I did get in early. I was the first candidate to file. I decided to make my whole first year about truly just listening to residents, taking their concerns seriously. We have a team of about 48 volunteers now. It'll be 100 by the end of this year. And their whole mission has been take notes, meet everybody, and listen carefully. And that's what we've been doing. Tampa is a big city with a lot of competing interests, but it's not that big when you get in the weeds of it. And I feel like, you look at the previous elections, even with District 5 with Naya, she wasn't the one that raised the most money, but she won. And I think that what voters are going to care about more now than ever, especially given the national climate, is can they put in office someone they can trust? We do have the real, very real challenge of making sure our message gets to them. But ahead of solving that, I wanted to make sure that my message was competent in the first place. Of
Wow. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
course.
um, okay. Well, I mean, like I said, I would love to spend the 2 hours it would take to really dive into your platform to give it the justice that it deserves. Because again, you have put so much thought into your plan, but we're nearing the end, unfortunately, of the show. So, is there anything that we haven't talked about that you want to send a message to anyone who's listening, in the city about your campaign, or share with our listeners?
Uh, yes, and thank you again for creating spaces like this for real dialogues and conversations and the opportunity to put our platform out there. Um, I got in this race because I see Tampa. I see Tampa so closely. I see the people. They look a lot like my friends and my family, and I care so much about our community. For years, we've been promised this idea that if we just build one more shiny skyscraper downtown, or the Rays move here or there, or so many, just a variety of different opportunities, that we'd finally get this Tampa of tomorrow, where this shiny future is promised for everybody. And I realized a long time ago, long time ago, that the only real way to unlock Tampa's potential isn't by how big we build our skyline, but it's by how well we see people and how well we invest in them. And I want to run the government like a giant mirror for Tampa's energy and talent and expertise. And so the role is not about me, but it's about us. It's about our collective potential. Um, and so I just want to say this message: if you're out there and you feel like you haven't been heard by government, you feel like you're not being represented in city leadership, and you feel like now is the time to make a difference, I want you to know that I agree with you, and that I hope you would check out our platform, hendersonfortampa.org, and together we will build the Tampa of tomorrow today.
Nice. I like it. It's very reminiscent of not me us, I like that.
Absolutely.
So aside from checking out your platform, how can people get involved with your campaign? Where do you need the support the most?
I think that we have a lot of great foundation work done. We have talented consultants. These guys are Harvard grads, they're Polytech, Carnegie Mellon, really solid team. But what we need is the practical application. We need existing city community leaders. We need political caucus groups, organizations, people who've been doing the work for decades to help us take what's knowledge in theory and knowledge in practice in other cities and show us how we can apply the best of it here in Tampa. And so if you lead a group or you have expertise or you've worked with the city or you otherwise just feel a passion to get involved and help us push our message out there, I would ask that you reach out to one of us and we would take you with open arms.
Nice. That is a unique request. I haven't heard that before when I ask candidates what they need. How about just the average voter? I'm sitting here, I'm on carpool, I'm listening to this. I love your messaging. What can I do as one person, to get involved in your campaign?
To get involved, it's twofold. To get involved, you can reach out, email us, visit our website, hendersonfortampa.org. But the priority request that I ask to anybody that listens to this is that if you believe in this message, I promise you it is beyond theoretical. If you believe in this message, the most important thing you could possibly do is vote. That's where your power lies. Tell a friend to vote, set the date, March 2nd, set it on your calendar, but spread the word. That's what's going to take this election back.
And I know you don't want to be transactional, but how do people donate to your campaign?
HendersonForTampa.org. I don't want to make it sound like, we don't need to fundraise. We absolutely do need to fundraise.
Need to fundraise.
But I just wanted residents to know that their dollars are working double duty. It's an investment in us, but really it's an investment in, I think, our collective potential as a city. It's an investment in themselves. And we're going to put it to good use.
Look at that double investment.
Absolutely.
I love that. Who doesn't want a double investment?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for jumping into the race. I try to emphasize to people, they have no idea how hard it is to put your name in the ring, to run an election, to make yourself accessible, to go to every event, to try to get feedback. So thank you so much for stepping up to run. I wish you the best of luck on your campaign. It's been such a delight to talk to you. So thank you so much for joining us today.
The pleasure's all mine, Jessica. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And to all of our listeners, I just want to remind you of the challenge that I have been never ending closing my shows with, that I've challenged you to figure out who represents you at every single level. So I'm going to say it ad nauseum. If you don't know who represents you in the legislature, if you don't know who represents you in the Florida House District, you can go to my Florida House, you can go to my Senate, you can put in your address. You should know who represents you. And I say this from all the way from soil and water up until, to your state representatives, your federal representatives. We have a special election that's happening right now for District 14 with Brian Nathans. I have so many friends and neighbors that don't even know that they're in the district to vote for that. You should know who represents you. Do you live in the city limits? I tell people, go outside, check your manhole cover, see where your utility bills come from, but know who represents you at every single level. And if you don't know that, I challenge you right now, today, you can even go to the supervisor of elections. You can type in your information. They'll tell you every single district that you're in. You should know who's representing you. You should be empowered. And, as Alan said, possible Mayor Henderson, the most important thing that you can do is vote. Your voting is power. I know everyone's frustrated and they don't want to be just told to vote right now, but that's where your power lies. So don't let people talk you into the fact that your vote doesn't matter. And with that, we're going to close this episode of Reclaiming My Mind, getting to know your candidate. I'm going to give a special shout out to my husband, Neelish, who's the best audio engineer around. And thanks again for listening. Have a great Sunday.